Hey, Dad.
Hey, champ, I'm just catching up on the latest scrolls. What's on your mind?
You know how you always say Rome is the greatest civilization in the world?
It absolutely is.
I was just wondering, what makes us so great? How did we come to be?
Well, son,
Let me take you on a magical journey of Rome that begins with two brothers.
so these boys, Romulus and Remus, grew up and founded Rome in 753 BC, but they had one tiny disagreement.
They settled it peacefully, right?
Not exactly. Romulus gave Remus a headache with a shovel. Here's a sketch.
Our first king was a murderer.
Yep, family drama at its finest.
When did we become the greatest civilization, Dad?
Well, Rome was first a total man cave. We had a big party and invited our neighbors. Then we borrowed their women. Permanently. Check out this illustration.
That's horrible.
You're horrible. Oops, sorry. I'll work on that. After a while, our kings got too big for their togas, so we kicked them out and started the Republic.
Is that when the violence stopped?
Ha! Not even close. That's when we really got busy, conquering the Latin League, the Samnites, and the Etruscans.
Dad, Rome sounds pretty barbaric.
Oh, I forgot to tell you about when a prophet told Saturn his son would one day overthrow him. So Saturn literally ate his son seconds after he was born.
I don't want to see a picture.
Here's a picture.
Dad, look at that.
Hmm?
That's messed up. Are we really this uncivilized?
Hey, if we're so uncivilized, would we use communal toilets when we all fart and poo together in one big, stinky, steamy, dirty toilet room?
Yeah, Dad, we would.
I don't want to be Roman. This is so
Weird.
You're weird, son.
The Roman Republic. The nation that since its foundation had been stabbing necks down the Italian peninsula. But this isn't the famous Roman Empire that ruled the known world. This is a relatively juvenile Rome, still just a regional power. In 264 BC, the big daddy of the Western Mediterranean was Carthage. Let's rewind a bit. Carthage was founded in 814 BC when some Phoenicians in Tyre had a mega surplus of goods and decided to export those goods across the Mediterranean. They became the dominant trading power in the region, and to support their growing trade network, the Phoenicians established many colonies, one of which was Carthage. Therefore, Carthage began its life as a Phoenician trade colony. The Carthaginians were Phoenicians, or if you were Latin-speaking Roman, they were Punic. Over the centuries, Carthage gradually expanded and became the region's power base. Like Rome, Carthage was a semi-democratic republic with a senate and a judiciary, but there were also some pretty hefty differences between the two. While Rome was big into farming and stabbing people in the neck, the Carthaginians, on the other hand, just like their Phoenician forefathers, had built their power through trade and navigating the waves. They went here and there, selling ivory tusks, gold, and slaves. And as a result, they were rolling in it. Whenever they weren't busy swimming around in their copious hoards of money, in their spare time, they also possibly enjoyed sacrificing their children to Baal, the god of, let me check my notes. Yes, plant fertility. As a result of their trading, Carthage had emerged as one of the Mediterranean superpowers. But wait, they said Rome. What the heck is that? Well, I know it's a pretty obscure little country that you've probably never heard of, but this spunky young nation was about to upset the entire region's balance of power. Initially, the two sides enjoyed relatively friendly relations and even signed several treaties, but it was a relationship that was practically destined to turn sour. See, Rome had a thing where they liked to aggressively expand their boundaries, often viewing such expansion as a defensive act. It's kind of like you could kill your neighbor because you knew eventually they would have tried to kill you first. Meanwhile, Carthage was highly protective of its wealthy trade network. So if you put a strategically important island between them, well, 2 + 2 equals war. Tensions rose and the two sides began viewing each other with increasing disdain. The hard-working Romans looked across the water at the money-hungry Carthaginians and said, "Look at those dishonest crooks. Bet they've never done an honest day's work." And the Carthaginians looked back and said, "Look at those simple-minded brutes. Bet they've never sacrificed a baby in their lives. Yeah." While the war between the two superpowers seemed inevitable, the event that finally triggered it was a little unexpected. The whole thing began with a few simple mad lads on a wild night out. These mad lads are called the Mamertines. They were Italian mercenaries employed by the tyrant of Syracuse.
But when he died, his successor said, "Sorry, fellows, we don't need big, burly men with sharp sticks anymore. You can all go home." As it turned out, the Mamertines didn't want to go home. So, instead, they went to the nearby town of Messana and said, "Hey man, we're poor little buff boys without a home. May we come in?" Poor fellas. Sure thing, just so long as you promise not to massacre all of us." "We promise." The Mamertines then massacred all of them. Well, not all of them, just the men, and they stole their homes and families. "Ha! This is my house now. This is my best dad ever mug now, and you guys are my new family. Son, want to go play catch with your old papa? You're not my real dad." "Ugh, teenagers, am I right, dear? You're not my real husband? Oh, I'm so trapped in this marriage." "Then get out." "No." The Mamertines now controlled Messana, who began raiding up and down the Syracuse coastline. When the new ruler of Syracuse saw this, he wasn't happy. The Syracusans began fighting back, and in response, the Mamertines said, "Oh crap, they're fighting back. What do we do? Quick, we'll convince the Carthaginians to come and save us." "Oh no, we're in trouble, and we need a big, strong empire to come and rub our bellies." "Why are you saying it like that?" "If I were a big, strong empire, I would like to be seduced." See, it's working. The Carthaginians had long dreamed of controlling all of Sicily. They had been fighting Syracuse and their Greek influence on the island for centuries. And now, here was an excellent opportunity to get one over on them. So Carthage promptly answered the Mamertines' cry for help and sent a force to garrison Messana. As it turned out, however, some within the ranks of the Mamertines weren't too happy with the occupying Carthaginians, so they sent out a second cry for help to Rome. When it reached the Roman Senate, they were a little more hesitant. Going to help the Mamertines ran the risk of triggering an all-out war with Carthage, and they had only just finished conquering the Italian peninsula, so they were tired. Also, the Mamertines were across the water. They had never leaped that before. So would you assume that the exhausted Romans would probably sit this out and avoid conflict with Carthage? But you would guess wrong. Rome couldn't resist a chance for war. Why? See, as a republic, they were hell-bent on preventing any one man from ever gaining too much power. And so rather than having one leader, Rome had two, called consuls, who shared power. These consuls could also only serve for 1 year before the new consuls were elected. These measures to limit the consuls' power were noble, but had an interesting side effect. The consuls knew they had just 1 year to try and gain as much glory and prestige as possible, which was very important in Roman society. And what is the best way of gaining glory and prestige? Military victory, of course. The Roman political system encouraged these consuls to go out and be as aggressive as your Italian grandmother. The ambitious consuls convinced the people to support an invasion of Messana. Upon arrival, the Romans made their move and found the Carthaginians in disarray, forced to retreat from the city. In contrast to the Romans' aggressive tactics, the Carthaginian military had a somewhat different approach to discipline. Alright class, a quick lesson. In Carthage, if you mess up on the battlefield, it's crucifixion. If you show any sign of cowardice, it's crucifixion. If you're not winning, you're in trouble. "Sir, I have something to report." "What's the issue? Aren't you supposed to be in Messana?" "Yes, but the Romans showed up and we had to leave." "So you just left?" "Exactly." "Well, that's definitely a crucifixion-worthy offense." The Roman consuls, eager for glory, pushed ahead, but their aggressiveness was met with a cautious Carthaginian response. While impressive, the Romans' new fleet was not enough to match the Carthaginians in naval expertise. When the Romans faced off against the Carthaginian navy, they quickly realized they were outmatched. The Carthaginian rowers were in peak condition, while the Romans still found their sea legs. The Romans were determined to find a way to compete. Copying their enemies was a Roman specialty. From aqueducts to chariot racing, the Romans learned from others and made it their own. When they encountered the Carthaginian design for ships, they didn't just replicate it, they improved it. So, when the Romans set out to build their fleet, they started from scratch. Thanks to some luck and clever adaptation, they managed to construct a formidable navy in record time. They turned their naval challenges into an opportunity for innovation. Their strategy to adapt Carthaginian designs and turn naval battles into more familiar combat scenarios was crucial to their eventual success. The Romans' new fleet was tested as they aimed to dominate the waters and gain the upper hand in the ongoing conflict. Oh great, they're back. Must love getting their butts kicked. Sir, what's with the tall things sticking out of their ships? Look at that. They put a big wooden tower on their ship. That'll make them tip over in a breeze. Ha 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 ha. What does it even do? It's called the Corvus. The Romans slam it down to board us. The Romans built a big swinging spiked gangway called the Corvus. When the Carthaginians tried to ram them, the Romans would slam them. Trying to go around? No problem. The Corvus swivels. Try behind? The Romans hug the coastline. It was foolproof. Those brawny Carthaginian rowers flexed all they wanted, but they were no match for the Roman brains. And with their ingenious Corvus, the Romans outclassed the Mediterranean's finest. The Carthaginians were flabbergasted. The general of the defeated Carthaginian fleet, let's just say he was in for a crucifixion. With control of the seas, the Romans could block coastal cities and supply their legions. So they thought, let's rampage. Carthaginians, we're about to rampage. What will you do? We'll close the gates and stay inside. Oh, come on, stop messing around. No. Seriously, no. To counter the Romans' new dominance, the Carthaginians went defensive. The war in Sicily turned into a brutal slog with endless sieges. Cities fell slowly, with the Romans taking their frustrations out by slaughtering and enslaving populations. In 256 BC, the Romans were fed up and decided to shake things up. Hey, I'm Marcus Atilius Regulus, your new consul. Sicily's a drag, so I'm skipping it, heading straight to Carthage. We'll slaughter the men, enslave the women and children, and I'll get 1,000 naked statues. Yeah! Woo! Marcus, that seems pretty brutal. Normal for the time. Sometimes we even chop pets in half. Yeah! Woo! The Romans are coming. They'll kill us all, maybe even our pets. That's barbaric. No, it's normal. We'd do the same. The Carthaginians knew it would be catastrophic if the Romans landed in Africa. So, while the Romans built a massive invasion fleet, the Carthaginians prepared an even bigger one. In 256 BC, a colossal battle loomed as the Roman fleet advanced south, with 680 warships and around 300,000 men battling to decide the war. The Battle of Cape Ecnomus remains one of history's most significant naval battles. So next time your granddad brags about sinking an aircraft carrier, remind him it's not quite the same. The Romans had everything riding on this battle: warships, supplies, horses. They formed a wedge-like formation to break through the Carthaginian line. Desperate to prevent a Roman landing, the Carthaginians feigned a retreat to lure the Romans in. But with so many ships, maneuvering was a mess. 3 separate battles emerged. The Carthaginians became sitting ducks, and the Romans swung into action. The Roman center triumphed and saved their flanks. The Battle of Cape Ecnomus was a Roman victory.